The Trijicon TR25 is a second focal plane LPVO. It is a 1:6 magnification, weighs around 19 ounces, and costs around $1,000. This is made in Japan, and if you want to find out more information on it, check out my link in the description below for my previous video on the red triangle version. This one is going to be a German number 4, but I will be comparing this directly against that very soon for your viewing pleasure. Because the whole point of this video is to find out what kind of reticle might work best for you in this platform. This is one of the very few times that I'm actually reviewing a second optic of the exact same make and model, with the exception of this one having a slightly different reticle. Typically my reviews are a one and done sort of optic, and I try to make light of that because guess what? I only have a sample size of 1 typically. In this case, it's going to be 2, so it'll be nice to see how well this compares against the other one that I did a while ago to see if it truly is consistently good or not. So far, going over the physicalities of this scope, it feels exactly like the last one. This one is brand new, the other one was used, but still, everything is tight and solid. The eyepiece is rock solid, literally like you could just hit someone over the head with it and it would be fine. Illumination on these versions, being the AccuPoints, is going to be with tritium. So that disc that I was just spinning is the cover for the fiber optic disc that helps channel in ambient light to help increase the brightness of the illumination. Now, if you're not a fan of that, then you're not going to be watching this video. If you want to be able to control your brightness truly, you're going to have to get something that's battery powered. Magnification ring has a nice little cattail built into it, and you can buy extensions for them, but I find this to be more than adequate. It's also nice and tight. It's beautiful. And the turrets are classic high-end Japanese. We've seen them on multiple Trijicons in the past, as well as the Delta Striker HD, and they just damn work well. One area where I gotta give props to Trijicon, at least with the AccuPoint series, is that they come with a plethora of different style reticles. So this is only going to illustrate 2. The red triangle in the bottom left, and the German number 4, which is a fine crosshair with very thick bars at 369 that extend out to help give you a fast acquisition of the reticle and then a finer aiming point so you could take more precise shots. My one critique about the red triangle, at least after I had used it and abused it for about a month, was that it was a little bit too thick, and on longer range shots, that little triangle did obscure a lot of the target. I thought I was going to like it more than I really did, but sometimes it's one of those things where you won't know until you try it, and unfortunately it happens to the best of us. I really hope my videos will help give you a little bit more of an insight so this way you guys can figure out what's going to be the best purchase for you. And with that, let's move into the side-by-side comparison. Like I said, I had reviewed the red triangle one quite some time ago, so obviously the footage is not going to look alike. But what I'm looking for here is consistency between the two. How does the image look? What does the image shift look like? Is there any distortion that we see? What does the scope body look like? Is the image razor sharp when we look through both of them? That is what we're checking out right now. As you can already tell, there's about the same sort of image shift when we look over the power lines. But honestly, it's really not that bad. What's far more important to me in this case is going to be overall distortion. A little bit of a shift isn't distortion as long as the image is flat. I really have a problem with fisheye, and I can't get around that. It actually makes me nauseous when I get behind a 1X, whether it be on an LPVO or a prism or a red dot that has distortion of some sort where the image looks like it's moving as you're moving with it, and it just makes me nauseous. With these two, the images are flat, albeit with a slight little shift. So far, so good across both of these. Taking a finer look at the reticles and our target here at 30 yards, you can see the big difference between these two. And no, it's not the amount of scope body we see or the view looking through it, because those are basically identical. There might be a few percent between them, but that's literally shifting the scope forward and back by about a 1/16 of an inch. Just look at these two reticles. Which one is easier for you to pick up? Which one is easier for you to spot? Especially considering that right now the illumination is as bright as it can get with the ambient light given. I am indoors and we are looking outside on a very bright sunny day for the German number 4 and on the red triangle a very overcast day. But if you want brighter illumination, you're not going to get it with an AccuPoint or, for that matter, any tritium powered illuminator that has to rely on ambient light to augment it. Unless you're talking about the Trijicon Tri-Power, which had tritium, a fiber optic disc, and a battery. The only reason why the illumination is getting bright on these right now is because I have a flashlight over that little disc to help bring in more ambient light. So right off the bat, If you're not 100% sure that this is what you want, don't even bother with this because it's not. There are other great comparisons that I make against these scopes, or at least rather the right triangle version on that full review, which again is linked in the description below. But if you're really on like the straight and narrow that this is the scope you want, now you're just trying to figure out if the reticle is going to be right for you or not. For me, again, I've already told you, I prefer this German number 4 to the right triangle. Would I prefer maybe the mil dot reticle? I probably might, but I don't know how easy it would be to pick up at 1x or at any x. At least here with the German number 4, those really thick bars at 3, 6, and 9 really draw my eye to the center, and you get that fine center crosshair, which really allows you to make more precise shots, which for how I would set the scope up and how I think a lot of people should, would really make a world of difference. But before we talk about that, let's talk about the stability with the image when you go slightly off center. We're at 6x, 900 yards on that power tower, and the power lines in front of us are at 30 yards. Shifting it side to side ever so slightly, the image and the reticle maintain a very high level of sharpness until you literally can't look through the thing anymore because you're so far off center. This is a good performance. I didn't do it with the red triangle one because I wasn't doing it at the time, but now I really incorporate this in all of my reviews because it's a very important test. For me, I found out that the Primary Arms Nova wasn't as nice to my eye because I'm a dynamic shooter. I usually never shoot only from a bench. I'm always shooting on the move in different positions, and something like the PST Gen 2 had a much more stable eye box than the Nova. So I prefer that one over that. But in this case, everything is beautiful. It's very wide and forgiving image, and you have a lot of leeway when you get behind these scopes. I'm not going to go too into detail, but I really wanted to incorporate this into this review because I didn't have it in the last one. It's really impressive to see just how large and forgiving the eye box is on these things again. I really do cherish this scope, and I didn't think I would because it goes against a lot of what my old school mindset was, which was I want a more quote-unquote usable reticle and a usable setup. And that is something that I wouldn't say I've grown to change, but I've grown to appreciate different things. So without further ado, let's talk about how I would personally set this up. And this is what I'd recommend for basically everybody. Back in the day, I wanted a BDC in all of my LPVOs because I felt that was going to be like the most usable. Truth be told, now I'm running a 5200 yard zero on any scope that goes on top of my 5.56 guns because all I want to do is hold center on something, take a shot, and probably hit as long as I do my job. The gun will do its job, I'll do my job, and I'll make a hit on a fairly large surface area. You're talking about a foot is where the bullet will impact top to bottom with a 50 to 200 yard zero within those distances and beyond. It's a combat hold. It's a combat zero. And I actually have grown to really appreciate that in a very simple setup. And these scopes with these reticles are designed for that. I think we get lost in the minutia and the complication of everything. I think we like to have more and more and more stuff, and as a result, we just get lost in it. These are almost a step back where it's like, okay, you have non-adjustable turrets, or at least non-quick adjustable turrets. The only thing you have to really worry about is magnification and your limited availability with your adjustment of your illumination. So there's not much to really deal with these. Thus, the same thing should be set with your zero. I'd run this with a 5200 or 300 yard zero, depending on what your ballistics are for your particular gun, the loadout that you're running, and of course the elevation that you're at. All of those are going to play a huge factor. But just think of running a 50 to 200 yard zero on this, and going out to 300 yards, you'd have to hold like 4 inches, 5 inches high, again, depending on your setup. That's an extremely efficient setup. And there's literally no thinking involved. It's just hold, squeeze, or press, hit, done. It's because of this that I also believe that these would be really good hunting scopes. 1 to 6 is a very practical magnification range. They are a little bit on the heavier side, about 19 ounces, but they are very durable and very tough. They feel absolutely fantastic in hand. And at that point, with hunting, less is more, right? It's a little bit heavier, yeah, but there's less involved. There's less thinking. All you got to do is just put the reticle on target and squeeze. That's why the military was using that setup for forever. and it just works. And a lot of people, I think, do get lost in that. So this is a step in the more simpler direction. But if you want to go a little bit more crazy, you can absolutely go with the mill dot reticle and then at least be able to use that for milling and gauging what distance some targets are at. So different strokes for different folks. You might like the triangle, you might like the German 4, you might hate both of these and go with something else, or you might just want to go with a completely different scope. Either which way, here is two good representations of reticles for this particular optic. That's all I'm trying to make here. Which one is better for you? Only you can answer that. For me, it's 100% the German number 4. It was so good, in fact, that I'm struggling trying not to buy one. Yes, they're around $1,000, but they just work and feel so good, and it's just really getting behind them is an experience. Would I opt for this over like a Gen 2 Razor HD? I much prefer battery-powered illumination. That's the only reason why I wouldn't. Would I do the Credo HX 1:6 second focal plane battery-powered version of this? Honestly, the view looking through it looks bigger on the TR25. Even though they got the same field of view, it's just a little bit better experience with the TR25. But again, I'm a big fan of battery-powered illumination because I can set the brightness to whatever I want when I want. Again, different strokes for different folks. Check out my full review in the link to the description below for the red triangle one, because that will give you a lot more information than what you got here. So with that, a very big thank you to the same person that sent this version in as did the red triangle, because he is a Trijicon whore and I love him for it. And a huge thank you for all of you for watching. As always, see you again next time. And a huge thank you to my Patreon providers and my Subscribe Star subscribers. Without you, this truly wouldn't be possible. If you'd like to support my channel but don't want to join either of those, I completely understand. But you could still help by using my affiliate links in the description below, and or like, share, and subscribe as always. Again, thank you very much.